So when is the last time you jumped the mast? Watch your lines, Johnny. Hello, my name is John Schaefer from the Ministry of Sailing. Today we're going to be talking about a two-part series about night sailing. This is part one, and this is from the Ministry of Sailing. Thank you for joining us, folks. Before you go night sailing, it's probably something you should really consider. When is the last time you took a look at the fittings on the top of the mast? Professional racers, before we race, our bow man and our mast man, they go up before every single race. I'm not saying that you have to go up every single day, but you should have in your log the last time you did it and before you go sailing at night. In the words of Captain Ron, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen out there. That's right. So you would walk around and take a look at all your shrouds, all your fittings, get somebody to go up to the mast, tape off anything that might need to be taped off to make sure you don't rip any sails. You're also going to check out everything on the mast that's connected to it. Make sure there's no sharp angles on those as well. And here's another tip that we have. Do you know how to take off your sunglasses? See, a lot of people lose their sunglasses. First of all, if you opt not to use a lanyard, you're probably making a mistake. But sometimes lanyards get in the way. They also prevent a hazard sometimes for choking or getting caught on something. So I understand if you choose not to use a lanyard. But when you're not using your sunglasses, here is the proper way to take them off. And then some people place them right here on top of their hats. Now, one of the problems you have with this is center of gravity on your sunglasses. When you look up, and I'm sure it's happened to everybody, you're going to look up and check out what your wind vane's doing, and these sunglasses, watch this, they just roll right off. See how simple they roll right off the back when you're looking up? If they're expensive, they're going to end up in the water. If they're not expensive, it's not going to happen. But if you spend more than $100 for your sunglasses, and you insist on wearing them in this fashion, they will end up in the water. So, pro tip, upside down. Reverse the center of gravity. Look up all you want. They stay exactly where they're meant to be. As of course, before you start sailing at night, you need to know where you're going. So there's different methodologies. There's ways you can do this. Everybody has multi-functional displays usually. A lot of people are moving to more iPad navigation, which there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure it's big enough that you can see. And you have redundancy built in because, as you know, if it's not attached to the boat, it ends up in the water. So figure out a way to do that as well. We'll show you a little tip we use on our devices. So here's one of the devices which I really appreciate. It makes life so much easier when you're navigating, because sometimes working off your multifunctional display or your MFD, it can be a little cumbersome or difficult. What we like to do is sync up an iPad. This is just an iPad mini. We buy the used ones, we buy two of them. So we buy two refurbished ones online, expecting one is going to end up in the water. Got a little back strap on the back of it. That's right. And we can navigate right from here. Fits well inside of a pocket if needed. Tucks away, so as you need it, you can just pull it out, and once again, you'll have all your navigation systems on there. Again, syncing to your Wi-Fi is going to be really important. Sometimes the Raymarine system's closed, but there's ways to work around that as well. But we highly recommend utilizing an iPad. Do your route from here, and then share that route with your multiple functional display. Once you have your route plotted, it's going to be important to zoom in. Go to the lowest level possible on your electronic maps and read all of the small print on your other maps. If it says see a note, actually go read what that note says. We're going to show you both paper and we're going to show you electronic charting and those things which are going to be important. Once you have your route, then you identify along your route all of those items which will be hazardous. Once you have those, you put them down in a checklist. At this mile, you're going to have this. Or in the vicinity of here, there's going to be a green can. On the vicinity over here, there's going to be a red none. In the vicinity near here. And so you put that on your route as a checklist, 1, 2, 3, 4. This helps the watch at night stay awake. It gives them something to do. As one person's driving, the other person is working with the charts, understanding where those hazards are, and you're checking them off as you go, so you know exactly what the next one is. But sometimes maps will lie to you. That's right. Whether you're updated or not, it makes no difference. There might be items on there that are missing. There might be items that are not there. So what do you do in that case? But before we go into what might be missing or what might not be working or what lights are out, let's really start talking about bailout points. Where are locations that provide shelter? You have to put that on your list as well, that the next closest shelter, if things go wrong, is this point. If we have to bail out, it's going to be at this point. These should also be identified on your checklist of risk and those things you might want to pay attention to. So where do you find the notice to the mariners? Right there on the website. District 5, local notice to mariners. That's exactly right. Go to the LNMs, local notice to mariners, and that drills down into what's changed this month, even this week. Scroll all the way down, as you would see, to February, and you will download all of the notices that came out in February. Let's take a look and see what some of those would look like. Scrolling down to section 4, chart corrections, you can see that often things are moved, added, and then deleted. And the list goes down all the way down. So there'll be 30 to 40 pages of this that will show in your area, wherever you are, the corrections that are on all of your charts. Under discrepancies of federal aids, if we take a look at the Little Egg Inlet, we find that it is missing altogether. So since we highlighted the Little Egg Harbor, let me show you one of the adventures we had. And we're also going to show you how to drill down deep into some of the maps to understand what's going on. Here's a little shot of a professional race team that one day didn't zoom in all the way to understand what the charts were. Sometimes you're looking at the big picture, but at night you get tired. Even the best navigators in the world sometimes forget to zoom in. Even some of the best sailors in the world, when you're doing night watch, it gets tired. You get tired, you forget things. Thus the reason we're always writing things down and using a checklist. Navigation, or what some people call in the professional industry, navigating, doesn't necessarily have to be a secret. It shouldn't be one person's job. Everybody on the watch should understand the route, know the objectives, understand the hazards, understand the risk management plan as well. It shouldn't be up to one person. Both watch leaders should have a thorough understanding what the expectations are. They should also understand when to wake up the skipper. So there was this one time on a delivery on about a 50-foot vessel. We were coming into the Little Egg Harbor because all the room was taken by the Atlantic City Boat Show. There was a hurricane offshore, maybe 400 or 500 miles away, but there was a really nice swell. Yeah, it's important at those times to understand how to handle a vessel, how to set up your vessel properly. Everybody was working hard. Waves are probably 12 to 15, breaking on both sides of the shore, but we were able to manage it. Here's a little thing that happened. Let me show you how our boat speed changed. Let me show you the route we took when we suddenly realized that one of the buoys was underwater because the waves were crashing over it, and the other one wasn't there at all. So now that you've identified all the hazards, you're going to take a look again at the NavCen, all right, and right here at the navcentraluscoastguard.gov, the light list. And you're going to look at the annual light list to identify what lights and what colors are there, which will help you on understanding that, but those are already on the map. The light list annual, the weekly lights, and a list of summary of corrections. Those are the three that are really going to be important for you. because you want to read all of them, although the annual light list is probably already on your updated chart, specifically if you are updating your maps. If you're relying highly on electronic maps, if you're using navigation programs, it is going to be very important that you update those maps before you leave and make sure you have them all updated on your computer systems or whatever you're using. It's also going to be important if you're using a PC or you're using an iPad or you're using an Apple computer, a desktop, a laptop, that the updates for all the applications you're using are done. Make sure you have those updates. Because the last thing you want to have is connectivity and an update come while you're in the middle of a critical incident. Now, what's interesting is that happened in a race once. I believe it was the Hamilton Island race down in Australia. People are using the navigation programs, Expedition, a lot of people do. Some of the other ones are starting programs as well. And all of them had their updates turned on, and in the midst of the race, everybody's computer at the same time went to updating, except for the ones who turned off the updates. So you have two choices. Turn the updates off or stay off the net. So you think you're done. You've got the notice to mariners, you got the local notices out, you got your light list, you have the omissions and the corrections for the light list. You can go, right? Maybe not. We have crab traps, we have fish nets, but where do you find that? So, in every single state, it's hard to believe this, but it's true, the state owns the fish. That's why you need a fishing license. So, if you have crab pots, if you do have fish nets, if you have lobster pots, the DNR is going to give you a good idea, the depth, and they're going to give you a good idea what the locations are. Here in Maryland, we go to the Department of Natural Resources webpage, and this is what we start to look at and the information that's available for us so we can start planning the risk management portion of our trip and understanding how to avoid crab pots and also how to avoid the fish nets. When you look at the general information page, you can see, right highlighted in the middle, that nets are typically between 12 to 20 feet of water, but sometimes they go as deep as 20 to 35. So as you're developing your risk assessment, you want to keep your boat outside of water that's less than 35 feet. Taking a look at the crossovers we have right here for velocity, you can actually see that there's a chart that shows wind speed, that's right on one side, and it shows us our sail on the other, combined with wind angle. So you just down one side, across the other, and it tells you the exact sail configuration you should have. These are crossovers. So if the wind angle is at 120 and the wind speed is 10, it tells you your sail configuration. Now all you need to do is figure out the weather. You know those storms that pop out of nowhere? Some people call them squalls. They came out from nowhere and it was the worst ever. They're predictable. And this is how you find out a squall predictability. It is called Connective Available Potential Energy, the CAPE. Yep, that's right. If you have the right weather software, that's one of the things you're going to be looking at. Look at the potential of CAPE, and here's where you find that. My favorite application, without spending any money, is Windy. There's a pro version that you could subscribe to, but you can see here it is on the display. And as we see all the different options that are available, we just go down and we click on more layers, and once we click on the more layers, we can see that there's all kinds of overlays that we can place on top of the map. So if we just go right about the middle and we click on the one that says CAPE, the CAPE index is sitting right there, and we click on that. What happens is a risk chart comes out that shows you where those squalls have the higher potential to forming when you're sailing around the world, or even in this case, this is the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, the orange is the highest capabilities of there being squalls or storms which are produced by conductive energy. And as we zoom out, we can see some other locations in the world which also have the same potential. And if we look over to the Bay Area, you can see that we probably don't have to worry. Thank you for joining us here at the Ministry of Sailing for Part 1 of Sailing at Night. Part 2 is already on the internet. Can you believe it? We did part 2 before part 1. But as always, please do us a favor. If you thought this was helpful, share this, like it, and subscribe. We have a lot more information from our series on tips from pros. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great day.